Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Ronan, and today we got a lot to cover. But before we get into today's video, I'm going to need you guys to take a look at this analytical stat bar right here. You guys already know the deal. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment to fuel the algorithm, and don't forget to turn on notifications so that way you'll never miss another upload from the channel. Also, I want to thank the editor for this video, the engineer Iguana, for handling it for me. They've really been a big help in getting these extra videos out to you guys. But with all that being said, let's get into What If Ash Was Born in Kalos Season 2 Part 4. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's part right where the last one left off, with AZ staring down Lysander as he stands on the other side of the bars of his new cozy home, his jail cell. At first, this over 9-foot man tries to make small talk with Lysander. However, Lysander is no fool. He may be young, but he knows who this person is. You're the ancient king lost to time, aren't you? Well, it seems that even though my gene pool's been diluted over the centuries, you still have my sense of intelligence. You are correct, my son. I am called AZ, and I was once the only king of this land that you call Kalos. So beautiful it was, so many years ago. Unfortunately, humanity has a unique ability to poison anything that it touches. However, you, on the other hand, seem to be just the opposite. Your entire life efforts have been spent trying to fix what humanity seems to break, like you're trying to better the world. Tell me, Lysander, why is that? Or better yet, why are you not surprised about who I am, or my age, and why I stand before you as flesh and blood? With a surly look on his face, Lysander tells AZ that he's no fool. His father spent his entire life trying to prove the existence of some external force in the Kalos region that was driving it on a path of destruction. And he was essentially laughed out of any and all scientific communities, financial communities, everything. My father died a broken man, Lysander says. So I spent my life trying to do what he couldn't, fixing the world. If people weren't going to listen to my pleas for help, then I would do it myself. And I would put myself in a position of power and control so I could use my resources to benefit the greater good. And as far as your age and the reason why you're standing here and why it doesn't surprise me, that's quite simple. AZ, ancestor, or father, whichever one you prefer to be called, whispers have been passed down in our family for many generations. If you were actually part of it, you may have actually known that, but it doesn't surprise me that you wouldn't think to check on us. After all, you've pretty much forsaken humanity, even the people that may share a close bond with you, for your own selfish goals. At that comment, AZ simply laughs as he tells Lysander that while he is on the right track, his motivations are far from selfish. As a matter of fact, he simply hopes to right what was wrong, to give a second chance to a life lost. What do you mean, life lost? Lysander asks. Oh, my boy, this tale is far older than you. It is far older than this label that you call Kalos. My tale begins over 3,000 years ago. My kingdom was a peaceful and just one. We were experiencing a time of unknown prosperity and growth. Not a hungry mouth across the land. Things were plentiful. We lived side by side with these creatures that you call Pokemon, in harmony, sharing exact balance with nature itself. Unfortunately, peace can never last, and when someone has something that you don't, it's going to be taken regardless. It was the same for my kingdom by a massive army of invaders. We know not where they came, but they held the numbers on us. Their military presence was something that we had not known. We were but a peaceful people, willing to share whatever we had with our neighbors. However, these invaders, they didn't want to share. All they wanted was to feed their own gluttony. Well, judging by the way things are today, it doesn't seem like that war was that important, considering nobody ever really talks about it in the history books, Lysander says to his ancient grandfather. With a brief snicker, AZ goes on to say, "You would think so. However, you couldn't be any more mistaken. We learned quickly that the invaders were not going to leave without a fight, and eventually my people rose up against the oppressors, and they fought back, pushing as hard as they can, trying to preserve the way of life that they knew for all too long. Unfortunately, this came at the cost of many casualties. Lives were sacrificed in the name of freedom, something that we did not want to have to pay the price for, to which the entire kingdom looked to me, their king, for an answer. However, there was only one real path I could take, the absolute destruction. of our invaders. It was here that I commissioned my top mystics to build me a weapon of great power that could end this war with as minimal loss on our side as possible. So while my people toiled in the battlelands, my mystics got to work. Unfortunately, the cost of life had to continue to be paid in order for us to gain success in our endeavors. Hope was low. People of the kingdom were all in fear, beginning to believe that I could not save them. But after months of waiting, my mystics, they were successful in creating what I had asked, a machine that could end the fighting in one single move. However, in order to generate the power that was needed for this machine, they needed a massive energy source, something they didn't believe existed. That was until we were approached by a strange old hermit who possessed the knowledge of the ancient past, knowledge of a power source that, if utilized the right way, could power our weapon. Now, while we did not know where this hermit came, and we did not know if we could trust his information, times were desperate, and I was willing to do anything to save my people. Luckily, he was able to lead us to the power source that we needed, a giant cocoon that radiated in a black aura. Evolto, Lysander says. Correct. I'll never forget the first time I laid my eyes on this cocoon of destruction. Fear ran down my spine, but I knew it was my only chance. There was no way to move the cocoon from the land that it was in. It was like it was bonded to it for eternity, so we had to do something else. We brought the weapon to the cocoon. With the power of my mystics, though the process was slow, we were eventually able to do this. Unfortunately, though, it came at a great cost. We were mere days from being completely conquered, and unfortunately, our resistance was few and far in between of members. It was to the point that all of the pets of the citizens of the kingdom, or the ones you know as Pokemon, had entered the fray to try and stem the fighting, to try and hold back the forces long enough for my weapon to be ready. This even included my own friend, my own pet. Unfortunately, it was met with a grim fate, and it did not live to see the end of the battle. The news arrived to me just as my ultimate weapon had finally been completed. So then what happened? Kalos was conquered, and you just fell into obscurity until now, Lysander asks. Oh no, I'm afraid that it was much worse than that. You see, when we had finally completed the bonding process of the cocoon to the machine, the hermit that informed us about Evoltol and the massive energy that it had gave us one final warning before disappearing forever. It would come at a cost greater than anything I could pay. I didn't know what he meant until the moment when the machine was completed, and the news had arrived. My heart broke. I could feel the heaviness of it in my chest. Nothing else mattered. Not the war, not the kingdom, nothing. All I could do was just watch as the land around us was ravaged and the massive army descended on what was left of my kingdom. I could hear the cries and the pleas of my citizens telling me to help them, to save them, to fire the weapon, but I just didn't care. Grief had consumed me. Why? What was the point of this war? All it did was take life, and now my oldest friend gone. But you know the thing about grief, Lysander? It can quickly change into rage, and that's what happened to me. I didn't care about the armies and a peaceful resolution. I didn't care about my own people. I didn't care who got caught in the crossfires of this thing. I just wanted revenge. So I took it. I turned my machine on to its max power, draining Evoltol of all of its energy. However, there was one that would oppose me. One that actually had the power. The great beast. The eternal serpent, Zygarde. It stood opposite of me, aiming to protect those, both friend and foe. However, I would not let this stop me. I would not be denied my revenge. As the dragonic snake gathered its energy, finally reaching 100%, fully drained the life force of everyone in the surrounding area. In a bid not to be denied, I fired it, aiming to scorch the world and end all life as they knew it. But Zygarde, I underestimated its power. Its size, its sheer ferocity. It was able to oppose the force of my magnificent machine, and in doing so took the brunt of the blast, sacrificing its own life in the process. In one glorious eruption of black aura, the entire region of Kalos was scorched, purging it of all life as we knew it. The amount of energy that the weapon used was incomprehensible. I didn't believe that Evolto was capable of that much, and I would soon come to find out, because as I descended from the top of my machine, I realized one thing. The reason why it was so powerful is because the machine had turned Yveltal's blind rage into a giant black hole, sucking in any kind of life force from anything around it. And all of the Pokemon, all of the people, well, you've seen the graveyard outside of Geosynch Town. The rumors, I've heard them echoed for years, but I never once believed it. So you're telling me that all of those stones were once living beings? Oh, yes, they were. And they helped me accomplish my goal. And that was to, well, end the war in a decisive manner. But as I looked on the plane of destruction before me, a sudden realization had crossed me. And it was one that was born off of the words that the hermit had told me. He said that everything has a balance, and Yveltal, the legendary god of destruction, had a counter, something that's capable of giving life, just as it had taken it. That's when it hit me. If Yveltal had the power to take life to sustain its own, then the other one must have the power to give life. And if that's the case, then maybe my partner, I could bring it back. It was at that moment I resolved I would spend the rest of my life trying to find this counter to Yveltal to restore my lost partner. However, I didn't think I had much time. By the time that this war had broken out, I was already an old man. But days then turned into months, then into years, then to centuries. For whatever reason, I was frozen in time. I was directly exposed to the energy of Yveltal as the weapon had fired, and for whatever reason, it seems like my direct exposure had prevented me from aging, from dying, like I was going to live forever. However, this was fine with me, because then it would give me the time needed to gather my resources and find the one energy source that could do the one thing that I knew needed to be done, resurrecting my fallen partner and then punishing the world that took it away from me. So you're telling me that this machine that you built could resurrect the dead? Lysander asks. Oh, I'm confident that it can, AZ responds. And now that I have Xerneas, my plans are near completion. And once I'm able to resurrect my friend, then I will bring this world to its knees. This is where Lysander uses his above average intelligence to put two and two together. So, you intend to fire the ultimate weapon twice, don't you? Once to resurrect this partner of yours, and a second time to wipe out life as we know it, don't you? Well, I see you're catching on, AZ says. That is correct. You see, when my partner is resurrected, it'll be an immortal like me, and I will be able to use Yveltal to cleanse this world of the source of all pain and suffering, the beings that live here. So, me and Floette will be left alone with its beauty and peace. Lysander looks at AZ with nothing but hatred in his eyes. Ah, yes, I know that look. I've seen it many a times, as people in the past have thought they could falter my plans. It's a shame. I was going to offer you immortality, just like me, considering you are my direct descendant. After all, it could get a little bit boring, and I figured that you would be at least close to my intellectual equal, AZ says as he addresses his descendant. However, Lysander tells AZ that he has had his mind warped by the machine. He's crazy. Why would he think that this is a good idea? This world is meant for everybody, not just him and his long-fallen partner. AZ simply cracks a smile. Yes, I figured you would say that. You know, for being my descendant, you sure are weak. As he pushes a button on a wall that closes off Lysander's cell from view. This leaves Lysander in quite the predicament. He is now completely blocked in it, and he was formulating a way to get out after watching their routines for days. But if he can't get them to open back up the door, then he won't be leaving this place. However, on the opposite side of the wall, Xerxic has now approached AZ, telling him that they are ready to retrieve the key to the weapon. Now we fade over to Ash and Serena as they are talking. Ash is inquiring if she knows anything that could help them figure out where Lysander is. However, she doesn't really know, but she may have a bit of a clue. The last message she received was from an area between Shadowlore City and Geosynch Town. Ash says he needs to go that way anyway. His last badge is in Shadowlore City, and if that's the case, then he will go there and he will find Lysander. But then he quickly remembers that that may not be an option. After all, he's currently supposed to be a permanent guest of the International Police. Serena attempts to say something. Unfortunately, she's cut off when a very loud alarm goes off. It's not an alarm for the lab, but it's actually a citywide alarm. Something to notify the citizens that martial law is being enacted. Ash Ketchum has gone missing, and they need to find him. So they will be searching every building in the city until they do. It's at this moment that Ash realizes he can't go back to Professor Sycamore's lab. If he does, then he will never get the chance to find Lysander and figure out what is going on. Though Serena's a bit peeved about Ash drawing attention to her, she does choose to help him. So she quickly leads him out of the room that they're in and down a hallway. Then she pushes a button on a wall, causing it to open up. Here, she says, pointing down a long, dark, ancient tunnel. This is one of the oldest tunnels in the Kalos region, and it'll lead you directly outside of Lumio City. If you just keep going until you see light, you will be able to bypass all of the international police and go save Lysander. I will buy you as much time as I can, but you have to leave now. Ash looks at Serena. Thank you, he says, before running off into the darkness of the tunnel. Now we find ourselves back over at Sycamore Labs. As Professor Sycamore is playing with the grass starter, he's been enjoying himself, getting to relearn everything about the grass dragon type. And from what Ash told him, he's not surprised with the way it has turned out. While it is a bit more aggressive, it is in a bit of a playful manner from what Sycamore can see. The two are really enjoying their time together, but Sycamore then realizes that Ash hasn't come back yet. And then the citywide alarm goes off, and that's when Sycamore realizes Ash left. He used Quilladin as a distraction, so that way he can get out, but where did he go? This is where Quilladin begins scratching at a door. Sycamore looks at the dragon type, who looks back at him. So, you have accepted him as your trainer, haven't you? With a gruff, the dragon type nods. It needs to go find Ash. Whatever danger he's in, Quilladin needs to be there to help its trainer. Sycamore then opens the door, and him and Quilladin head out to the garden area where Ash was supposed to be. Unfortunately, they're both right. He's not there. But in his place stand both Looker and Grant, who are arguing about where Ash could be, while ordering all the local police to search around to make sure that there was no signs of a broken entry. Realizing that he needs to get Quilladin out of here before they notice him, Sycamore bends down to the little dragon type, rubbing it on its head. You need to go, he whispers. There's a door over there behind that tree. You can get out there. However, before Quilladin can turn, a little friend makes its presence known, as it begins to glow in the presence of Quilladin. Almost as a simultaneous reaction, Quilladin glows back. You, Sycamore says. I didn't think I'd see more of you. He then reaches into his jacket pocket, pulling out a container that houses more of these little things, these cores. They're all glowing in regards to Quilladin. So, you must all be pieces of Zygarde, are you? Well then, I assume that you want to go with Quilladin. Is that right? A collective sigh of agreeance comes from all the little cores, so Sycamore does the only thing he can do. He pops the lid on his container, and in a flash, he learns that he was right, because all of the little Zygarde cores begin to bond to Quilladin as it slowly absorbs them into its being. And a reservoir of aura appears in its eyes before fading away. Whatever's going on, Ash will need your help, Sycamore says. Now quickly, go. Quilladin gives the professor one last look, remembering the kindness and protection Sycamore had given it in the past when it was a timid Chespin. It then takes off running after its trainer in an urgency that Sycamore has never seen before. This just leaves Looker and Grant asking the professor if he knows what happened to Ash, to which the professor denies. He doesn't know where Ash went. He does know that Ash was in this room, because that's what he said, but then he just disappeared. This leaves the two international police stumped. They need to pick up Ash's trail before it's too late. For all they know, Team Flare could already have him and his Pokemon. Now we find ourselves outside of the city with Ash as he comes bursting through a really old wooden door that had a lot of vegetation overgrowing it. He then turns and takes one last look at Lumio City. Our young hero knows that him running comes at a cost, as he has to leave Quilladin behind, but he has no choice. He needs to get to Lysander and figure out what this mess is before it's too late. As he begins to take a step, Ash can hear a brief growling coming from the forest around him, but he's not really sure of where it's coming from. Knowing that he needs to get out of here, he sends out Absol for any type of protection, knowing that he's going to need cover to evade at all costs. The Dark type takes a defensive position, ready to intercept anything that's heading for them. Luckily for them though, the Dragon Grass type has caught up with its trainer, as Quilladin pops out of a bush, glowing slightly in a green aura. Quilladin, it's you! Did Professor Sycamore send you away? The Dragon type gruffs almost to say yes. It realized that Ash was going to need its help, so Quilladin did whatever it could to find Ash. Ash simply smiles. I'm glad that you were able to get back to me, but we need to go. I have an idea of our next stop, but it looks like it's just going to be us from this point on. Ash and his 2 Pokemon set off into the forest in an attempt to lose any trace of anybody that might be on their tail. Now we find ourselves in a Team Flare helicopter, as it is nighttime, and they are hovering above Anastar City, more specifically the Anastar Sundial. AZ looks down. The key. We don't leave here without it. And that, my friends, is where we are going to leave this part. So, tell me, how do you feel about this? What do you think about AZ being the villain of this arc instead of Lysander? Where did Professor Sycamore get all those Zygarde cords, and how did he know that they were actually pieces of Zygarde? And also, what did AZ mean about a key when he was referring to the Anastar Sundial? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all we have for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content that you saw today, and I really hope you come back for future episodes. I really hope you'll consider following me on some of my other platforms, maybe on Twitter, or joining my Discord if you like following behind the scenes things, or if you want to just get to know the community that I've slowly been able to build here the last couple of years on YouTube. Also, if you want to help support the channel a little bit more, considering joining my Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. I offer exclusive content on both of those platforms for the different tiers, and it's content that I'm sure you won't want to miss out, as it's going to be a long time before it comes to YouTube. But with all that being said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.